Hello one, hello all, I am the one, the only, the mighty Scoopinho. On my right is...
It's Christopher Mullaney, all the way from Alabama, California, Alaska, all over the place.
We just saw Endgame twice now. It's weird for me to even talk about this movie like a review-wise, and even last year I didn't want to do one for Infinity War because people asked me what I thought of Infinity War, and I was like, I liked it a lot. I was only having a nerd fest sitting in that seat in the theater. There was no way for me to actually give any sort of criticism on the movie, so I chose not to.
It's hard to have negatives on a movie like this just because it's 11 years, 22 movies of our time and our pretty much our childhood. And then this movie was just a comic book thrown into a movie reel, and for everyone to just sit there dazed and confused, really, as to how Marvel pulled this off.
It is a slower paced movie, and if you even compare this movie to Infinity War, it isn't as structured the same. It takes more time to get into the real meat of this movie. If you're looking for Infinity War in this movie, you're not going to get it.
And honestly, to compare it to Infinity War, because even like when Infinity War started, everyone was like, oh, wow, first 5 minutes in, and Thanos has 2 stones. Where's this movie going to go? But it's not necessarily saying that Endgame was paced slow is a bad thing. Because you need a little bit of build-up from where they ended off of Infinity War to where they begin Endgame. But a lot of people will take slow starts as a negative thing, when really this kind of just helped the whole movie snowball into how it really ended within the last act.
It gives us time to spend more time with the characters, like you said, to lead up into the big battles or the big heart-tugging moments. And I think that first hour just gives more weight to the bigger moments at the end of the movie. But to compare it to Infinity War, the first 5 minutes of Infinity War, Loki dies. And the first 5 minutes of Endgame, Thanos dies. So at the same time, you complain about the movie being slow. It really isn't. A lot of things happen in the first hours. Ant-Man coming out of the quantum realm. A very minor disappointment in myself was seeing a rat being the one that takes him out of the quantum realm.
Yeah.
The biggest question out of everyone's mind was at the end of the end credit scene in Ant-Man and the Wasp. Everyone's question was, how is Ant-Man going to get out of that thing? And then the movie happens, a rat gets him out.
and grazes the button, and now the release sequence is activated. Yeah, that's the only head scratcher, if there is any head scratcher, in this movie. The time machine part, the one thing that I wish we had more of, the classic Stark tinkering around with the possibilities of time travel, and it just seemed too easy, because he did it once and then failed, and then he just did it again, and then it just happened to render successfully. And my favorite part of like the past Iron Man movies is Tony tinkering around with the holographic maps and science and stuff like that, and it's actually really fun to watch. And I was kind of thrown off that it only took him one try to really successfully make it.
We're talking about the same hour and a half that everyone was saying was supposedly slow. So I personally don't have a problem with that. He is Iron Man. We're talking about 11 years of him doing the same thing. I don't have a problem with him figuring out in one scene. I think the fat Thor thing was a little bit sort of a way to but I think make Thor a little bit emotionally vulnerable, because he, at this point now, since Ragnarok, he's been like overpowered in the fact that he's like finally realized his full power. And I think that and when we get to that, when they all face off against Thanos, he's past that emotional breakdown that he has during the movie, and he's like fully stronger now because of it. And I think it is a perfect way for him to just showcase or show that he has all that power by grabbing both his weapons, and just the visual of him dual wielding both those weapons was absolutely phenomenal.
They did time travel so, I want to say, like, responsibly, and without having to explain it too in depth. I thought that helped the first act end out very cleanly without leaving too many question marks.
Well, I think for anyone watching a movie about time travel, I think that time travel, no matter if you look into time travel as much as you do, or if you look into it too much, you're always going to find some sort of mucky or muddy water. The thing is about time travel, I think that you need to accept that you're watching a time travel movie, and then kind of push back your scientific theories and questions about time travel and then put it in the back of the mind. You got to also suspend your disbelief, realize that you're watching a movie about a bunch of people in tights fighting a giant purple bad guy, Natasha's send-off, or not her send-off, her death scene in Vormir. It was like, when I was first watching this movie, I wasn't crying at the scenes that most of the people were crying, but I feel like this was a scene that kind of brought me closest to crying. It was because such a great performance from the both of them, Jeremy Renner and Scarlett Johansson. And I think they do a good job of like keeping you guessing till the very end, because if we're honest, either one of those characters could have went and it would have paid off by one of them getting the Soul Stone. But the fact that they keep you guessing till the very, very end, they're literally halfway there when one of them falls into the pit. And then the wonderful score that we heard in Vormir from Infinity War comes back, and it was just so good. The visuals, the sound, and of course the emotions. I think that particular scene was very good, and it was a good way to send off Natasha, who is a character that we loved since Iron Man 2, honestly.
Mm-hmm. It's kind of fitting that she's the one to go, just because she feels as if now she's found her purpose with this team, and especially since now Barton has a family and kids that they now know about, and she even says, Barton even says, "Tell my family I love them," and then she says, "Tell her yourself."
Mm-hmm. It's really weird me watching this movie, knowing everything that happens in all those 11 years and seeing everything kind of pay off on the big screen. When we finally get to Endgame, like the Easter eggs, like Hail Hydra from Winter Soldier, of course the battle in New York from Avengers.
This movie rewarded its fans,
of course,
for staying the course for these 11 years, 22 movies. Because if you were to only start at Phase 3, and saying that's not a bad thing for the casual Marvel fans, but if you were to jump in Phase 3, and then you saw this movie, you would still be very lost, because it goes back all the way to the first Avengers. It goes back all the way to Winter Soldier. I mean, not Winter Soldier. I
don't think you'd be lost, but I think, like you said, you would be rewarded for sticking around all that time, or catching up if you did catch up. Because there's so many things that are pointed to in any of these characters' movies, like Captain America, Iron Man. Everything is pointed out. Like, it's really, really weird for me to think how they wrote this movie,
Right, yeah. Now let's hop right into it. This final act, which starts right as soon as everyone gets back from the quantum realm. Everyone has the stones in hand. And the scene that hit me harder than Nat's death was when they all got back and everyone's looking around with a smile on their face, thinking that they just pulled off the impossible. And then all of a sudden Barton drops to his knees and everyone then realizes that they made it out, but someone didn't.
Hulk is eventually the one that does it, and he kind of fries his arm in the process, and he does say himself that he tried to bring Nat back, which is apparently why his arm is completely ruined now.
I just think it was fitting that Hulk did it, and he even said that anyone else, any normal man who did it, would end up dying and frying themselves to death. And he said that most of the radiation is gamma anyway, so there's a chance that he would survive. And the fact that they've seen Thanos use the stones twice, and his arm was also half the size of his good arm. So it was fitting that Hulk did it, and it's understandable how critical he was left, just because he tried to go back that far to bring Nat back.
Yeah. They should have had Rocket do it.
And then 5 seconds later, Thanos' ship sends about 30 missiles into the Avengers facility and rips it to shreds.
Realistically speaking, everyone should have died.
Everyone should. I mean, just...
I don't know how Ant-Man made it out alive. Apparently, like...
I did pick it up the second time.
That he shrunk.
As soon as it hit, he shrunk. But still. But like we said, minor things in a big picture success. I particularly think that the Thanos we saw in Endgame was more ruthless than the Thanos we saw in Infinity War, and this is up for debate.
Definitely more ruthless. Like in Infinity War, he's like more like Doctor Strange describes him. He's more of a prophet. He kind of wants to go about his way, not kill as many people in the process, just go do what he needs to do, fulfill his prophecy, and then move on. And this one, he's He's looking for blood. And
Yeah.
he literally wipes blood off his blade in this movie, so it's a bit fitting.
And when it's shown that it's Steve Rogers who's holding Mjolnir, I am not kidding. I got airborne in my seat. Because that was hinted to us in Age of Ultron. This is another example of Marvel just rewarding the people who have stuck through these movies.
And then he just goes to town on
I mean, you would think that this man had Mjolnir longer than he had his shield. He starts throwing some combos with Mjolnir that I haven't even seen Thor pull out. But that was one of the most intense moments of the entire movie until 5 minutes later.
This is the thing about this movie and how invested I was. And I think a lot of people will be feeling what I'm feeling. It was the type of thing where you see all this, like Thanos' whole army, like you said, his army from this, that, and the third, Jatari to whatever. You see all that, and I'm just kind of sitting in my seat being like, what the hell's about to happen? Like, is Cap about to be mauled by everybody? It's one of those things where you saw the snap happen. You realize that everybody's back, but you kind of forget because you're so involved into this madness that's happening on screen. And then it's so good when all the portals start opening up. You hear, like you said, you hear Sam say what he says. He says on your left, and then everybody coming back, the portals opening up. And I gotta say, the music,
the score. Right now, go to the event. If you've seen the movie, go to the Endgame soundtrack and listen to Portals. And if you don't get pumped up, I'm not too sure what's wrong with you. The one time that it was rapturous applause was when they panned across the entire universe coming back, and then Cap actually pulls the trigger on Avengers Assemble. That sent our theater into mayhem.
One of those things that was hinted at, and then they finally pull the trigger on, and then you're not even mad. It's like one of those things that could be corny. But
and it wasn't even close to being corny. Or cheesy or overplayed.
It was the most, assemblation.
And the thing is that he said it through clenched teeth. So it was intense, and it was heavy, and they were about to throw down. And then just...
madness. That's like
a no-holds-barred match broke out.
When Ant-Man punches that flying worm Chitauri monster, that's when I let out a holy shit in the theater. It was just needed at that point.
Yeah.
There's a gauntlet right in front of Thanos. He fights off Captain Marvel, Thor, Captain America, and then Iron Man himself. There's a look that Doctor Strange gives Iron Man, and he puts up the one finger. And
one finger.
And I think at that point, everybody knows what's about to go down.
And for me, the tears didn't hit until Peter Parker came over. And with tears in his voice, he was telling him, Mr. Stark, we won. We won, Mr. Stark.
I think it's Tom Holland's performance that always gets... From this and Infinity War, it's his performance that gets people on the edge or, like, off the edge,
in my case, crying. Off the edge, yeah.
And then I think... Not so much her performance, but Gwyneth Paltrow coming in because that they've been entangled for so long, for 11 years. It's Pepper Potts and Iron Man kind of closing the book. She says, you can finally rest, because earlier in the movie she says, will you be able to rest? And she says you are able to rest now. And then Iron Man goes, his arc reactor goes out, and then she just loses it. And everyone else
everyone else follows. In 2008, we start with Iron Man and Tony Stark. And in 2019, we finish with Iron Man and Tony Stark. And this is how I wanted him to go out.
Yeah.
If it was going to be any way, I wanted him to go out with his last breath as kind of the last saving grace of everyone that's depending on him.
We all talked about the contracts of certain characters and them running out. It was a way to send Captain America out without killing him. You can only kill so many characters in one movie. So fitting into a character that has been through so much. This was always hinted at in his own movies in Age of Ultron. Always hinted at he wanted to go back and live that life that Tony said that he needed to get. So very fitting ending to him. I think that it's something that was less of a tearjerker, and it was just something that I think all of us was just happy to see.
For, yeah. And, you kind of got that, gut feeling that once they found out how to do time travel without any long-lasting effects that this is a possibility for Steve because his fight is over here.
Based on the send-off, or what I think of the send-off, I think it's great. Puts to bed all of Captain America's problems. Mm-hmm. I'm sure if they wanted to do some sort of series on Disney Plus, they could talk about what the hell he did with Mjolnir back in time.
A lot of people, including myself, think that the shield should have gone to Bucky, and maybe it will. But it's just a good way to kind of extend this universe a little further. It's hard to rate something that you're such a big fan of. I don't know if that makes sense, but it kind of makes sense to me. Because, I mean, if I rate it like 8, then people are going to ask me what I thought was bad, and then I'm going to say I don't know. So I'm also going to stay away from rating it. But you guys can tell us what you thought of the movie down below. Down below there.
He's telling y'all to go to hell. Ladies and gentlemen, I am Scoop Bingo from the 5th Row. If you like this video, give it a like. If you are new to the channel, subscribe. And if you've been here for a minute, I appreciate you. I'm Scoop Bingo from the 5th Row. This is
Chris from California, and I'm gone.